That was Drain the Bloodbath, one of the newer singles by Whitby, Ontario rockers Chastity. Chastity is the brainchild of Brandon Williams, the band's frontman and lyricist. Over the last 6 years, Williams has put out an EP and 2 full-length albums. So far in 2021, Chastity has released 1 single, a cover of Third Eye Blind's Losing a Whole Year, which is pretty fitting considering that COVID-19 essentially cancelled 2020. I caught up with Brandon over the phone, which is why the audio isn't the best. We talked about all sorts of things, including the making of Drain the Bloodbath, and what made him decide to get veteran studio vocalist Makeda Francisco involved. We also talk about when his love affair with music started and how he would eventually fall in love with punk rock when he got into skating culture. I've been a fan of Chastity since their debut album, Deathlust, dropped back in 2018, so this interview really meant a lot, and I got to ask a lot of questions I'd been wondering for a while as a fan, because really there isn't all too much information about Brendan online. He seems to be a very private person. Anyway, here's my chat with Brandon Williams of Chastity. So, first off, Brandon, man, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I was trying to think back to the first time I heard about Chastity and what song. I think I first heard the song Children, which, like, I remember hearing your sound for the first time. I think what struck me is that it kind of reminded me of a little bit of like older Smashing Pumpkins, but definitely like your own sound. So yeah, I've been really looking forward to this talk for a while, man.
Hell yeah, wicked. That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I love the Smashing Pumpkins, so that's huge. Other people say Deftones, and like we hadn't really, and I know we have listened to them now, but we hadn't really listened to Deftones before writing Children and writing Deathlust, and then we put it out and people were like, oh man, it sounds like Deftones, and we're like, oh shit, well, we'll check it out. And then we listen and we're like, oh okay, this is sick, we like this. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely inspired by the Smashing Pumpkins.
Wicked.
We love it. So
is there anyone that you get compared to that you're like, no, I don't want to be in the same wheelhouse as those guys?
Oh, I don't know. I think I welcome it all now. I think I maybe used to be a bit more timid about the emo, like being called emo or being called 90s too much, but I don't really give a shit anymore. I think it's all fine by me, and however people hear it for themselves and their references, like other references they have in their life, it feels like not up to me at this point, so it's all good.
Yeah, I get that for sure. And then I think the first time I saw you play was at Maddie Fest last year.
Oh, sick.
We were rushing to get from my apartment to Maddie Fest. Luckily, we made it in just as you guys started out, so that was great. And something else that was really cool that happened during that show is that Dallas Green was in the crowd. And he was like, I don't know, like pretty much right behind us, and I got to meet Dallas Green, so it was a pretty cool day overall.
That's really cool. That's really cool. I remember feeling intimidated, honestly, playing that show. Just I love Alexis on Fire and City in Color, and someone in my band had said that Chris Murphy from Sloan was watching, and that made me extremely nervous too. It's like these are bands we've, tried to rip off in the past. So it's like when we're playing the intro of Spirit Meetup, it's kind of an Alexis on Fire Crisis rip off. So it's like, want to do this justice in front of these people, and with George Pettit there too. It was just like, fuck. Like I gotta do my thing more than usual, like just make sure we nail it or whatever. So
right.
Pressure was on, but I remember it being a fun show and a great day, and we finished the set and rushed over to go watch the Wu-Tang Clan play, so that was a treat too. And
oh my god,
yeah, it's crazy. So it was a surreal day, and especially in COVID days now, looking back on days like that, yeah, we had no idea what was coming.
Yeah,
But it was fun.
That's funny you bring up the Wu-Tang Clan, because you know, like how Instagram or Facebook says, like, oh, today a year ago you were doing this, and it was something I shot from like the Wu-Tang Clan show, and it was obviously very nice to remember that, but then also very sad because I was like, I don't know whenever I'm gonna be able to experience any sort of live music like that again.
Yeah, for sure. I know. Who knows at this point?
Yeah.
So, but is it good? Who else did you see that day?
I remember trying to see Descendants. By the time we managed to actually get to where they were, they were like, "Thank you so much," and we're like, "Fuck, okay." So yeah, then we saw you play. We saw Wu-Tang, and then we tried to get food, and then obviously all the good food was gone. So
right, next time, next Matty Fest. I'm hoping there's another one that I want to just be like. There's stresses obviously when you're playing and whatever. Like, where's our merch? Where's this? Where, you know what I mean? There's just like shit to manage or whatever that takes you away. Mm-hmm. But I want to just attend a Matty Fest, like, you know, and just be present to watch and enjoy the day or whatever next. I mean, yeah, it was amazing to play or whatever, but I just love to experience it and have some of that food and whatever. And
yeah, it's definitely like it's two different beasts completely, right? Having to play, yeah, you're working. Like you don't want to be there for work.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's just a good setup festival.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the pandemic, how's the pandemic been treating you?
Oh, I mean, it's been okay. It's been a lot of time to write and do other things that I otherwise wouldn't have the time to be doing or whatever. But I also feel, I mean, I was just trying to fill out a grant application and stuff, and I just got this like COVID brain, I think. You know, it's just this like mush, like my brain is kind of mush, I'm finding more. So I gotta just find the discipline in myself, I think, to go outside and like keep in touch with friends and stay on top of things, I think, or else I think it'll just fall into this mush even more. And but I mean, I think this summer I found like especially productive, and a few friends and I got tested, and we went and we tested negative for COVID, and we got in the studio together and did a bunch of recording, and ended up recording like 16 new songs, and we were just kind of working for, it was like an 8 or 9 day span, but got so much done. And so I mean, that was a highlight, I think, of the pandemic so far. But I mean, yeah, it's been okay. I just got to keep busy, I think, this winter, and continue to write and continue to challenge myself, you know, and yeah, hopefully it'll be good. But I think I'm finding right now it's a bit of a slog. I hate that the sun's going down at 4:30 or whatever. I hate that it's like so bleak outside and whatever. I'm just trying to, I mean, this is the longest I've been home in a row or whatever, and I kind of think I've enjoyed the luxury of multiple environments around me for the last few years or whatever, and now I'm like, oh, shit, like, I mean, bless Southern Ontario, but it is a bit, like, I think Ontario in the summer is amazing. I think Ontario in November is a different type of thing. Like, it's just kind of, anyways, but it's been okay. It's been okay overall, I think, and I got to just keep working.
What kind of like other stuff aside from working or writing are you doing to keep yourself busy?
Oh, at first, like I crushed Better Call Saul and rewatched Breaking Bad and started on Sopranos and stuff, and I got addicted to like Scrabble on my phone and playing with my friends, and I'm trying to think. I mean, I don't know. There's just been a lot of being at home. I am kind of afraid of COVID, to be honest. I think I'm like afraid of I think I'm especially afraid of carrying it and giving it to somebody even more vulnerable than myself or whatever. So I think I've tried to just stay in, and I think just mostly out of guilt or whatever, in a good way, mm-hmm. I think. But so I've just been in outside more, but than I should be. But yeah, I mean, I try to walk around the neighborhood and whatever, like I said. But yeah, just been doing my thing.
Right on. And are you in Whitby right now?
I'm in Hamilton right now.
Hamilton.
Yeah, but I'm kind of back and forth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is Hamilton pretty much home base, and then Whitby's just where the fam lives?
Yeah, right now at least. Yeah, like during COVID especially. But I mean, Whitby is home, and Whitby is like Chastity's home. But yeah, I've been in the Hammer.
Right on, man. Well, do you remember what either you personally or what Chastity as a band was doing when lockdown started being put into place?
Yeah, I mean, we were in Germany, and like we were on tour with a band called Dive.
Oh, nice. I love Dive.
Same. Yeah. So we were on tour with Dive in Europe, and I mean, shows kept on getting canceled. Italy went into lockdown. We canceled our Italy shows, and we played Prague, and we were on our way to Austria, and Austria's border closed as we were like about to enter. Like we were an hour out, and we got a call that said, like, yeah, don't come. We're gonna get stuck at the border. Just drive.
Oh my God. Just
start your drive to the next place. And so we started driving. We played Munich, Germany, and the day we played Munich, the like chancellor of Germany was like, I think she was quoted as saying like 70% of Germans are going to get COVID. It was just like in the midst of the hysteria, you know, of everything. Mm-hmm. It was understandable. It was just a wild thing at the time. And it was just like a scary day, I remember already. And we played the show, and we started driving toward Zurich, Switzerland. And as we were like driving, we were trying to find a hotel. It was like 1 or 2 a.m. and hotels like weren't opening their doors. It was like just scary or whatever. They were just taking who were there. But yeah, their doors had closed for the night, and we were like, okay. And as this was happening, we were getting these dings. Like some of my bandmates have, you know, those New York Times or whatever, like news dings on their phone. And it was like, Tom Hanks says coronavirus. And it was like Trump closing border to Europe in 48 hours. And it was like when Trump went on, it was like 9 p.m. or whatever at home. And he made the announcement that the borders were being closed to Europe on whatever day. Like, I think it was March 13th or something at the time. And we were like, wow. So we interpreted it at the time that like Dive had to get home to the States from Europe. So yeah, this was like middle of the night, and I got a FaceTime call from like the tour management, Dive's tour management, and it was like, yeah, tour's canceled. We're flying home next flight. And it was like, it just felt apocalyptic. It felt like crazy. And we started driving 8 hours to Paris to get on early flights and drop off our gear and our vehicle and a bunch of stuff and do just like what we had to do. So we drove overnight there. And this is like when signs, you know, started to have like the signs on the highway. It was like COVID-19, like stay home.
Yeah.
In French and in German and like these different languages and stuff. But we could see like coronavirus or whatever. And we were like, wow. And it was just a crazy time. And then we got to the airport. It was scary there too. It was just like some people wearing masks, but others not. It wasn't like there were no sort of like set. We just didn't know. I don't think the world knew you know, they just didn't know at the time what we know now or whatever. But it was definitely freaky. And yeah, we got on our flights and we got home, and yeah, I mean, it turns out one of my bandmates tested positive, and someone that was hosting us at one of these shows, like tested positive, and I got a test and I never actually heard back on my test. But it was in the sort of like mess of everything. And it turns out that, 6,000 tests or something in the area that I got tested. There's some glitch or something happened. It came out in the paper in Hamilton anyway. So I guess I was among them, but I just never found out. But
oh my God, that's terrifying.
So yeah, it was an experience. It was definitely an experience, and came home and I think just locked her down, and I think I felt stunned, to be honest, from it. But I mean, it obviously could have been worse, and I'm happy we got home safe, and the person who got it in my group is fine and was fine, and just had a few rough weeks there, but pretty wild. It was pretty wild. So that's where I was. During when stuff started to lock down.
Yeah. So I guess you guys all came back, had to go into self-quarantine. How long was it until you were able to like meet up again and jam and stuff?
We haven't.
Oh, you still haven't?
Yet, really? Yeah, not that same group. So it's pretty intense. I mean, I want to coming up, but I think we're all stunned and whatever, and I think it does feel a bit defiant, just of not necessarily of Ontario or Canada law, but it kind of feels just defiant to the law of others around us or whatever, to just get together and jam or whatever, especially without getting tested. Like when I recorded with the group that I recorded with in the summer, it was sort of a low period in COVID testing. I don't know if you remember, like August or whatever. It was like the cases were down to like as little as 30 cases a day or whatever. So we went to a drive-through COVID test in a hockey arena, funny enough.
Okay.
Just got the thing jammed up our nose, and there's no one else. There's just the clinicians, and us. So I think, to get together now and jam, I just feel a bit trippy to do it. But I mean, I think once there's tours, once we figure out what happens with this vaccine and when Canada's getting it or whatever, and when there's tours to go on and rehearsals to be had, I think that's when the gang will get back together, and that'll be an awesome day, and I'm looking forward to it. But in the meantime, we haven't done our thing. But yeah.
So is it like when you are recording, do you generally work with the people you tour with, or do you kind of just hire like guns for hire?
Yeah, they're kind of homies for hire or whatever, on tour, and then recording. It's just kind of like Chastity is like me and my friends. It's kind of what it's been or whatever, and different circumstance and whatever led to the recording group and a different group, but it's sort of been the way of Chastity, just like my friends and I rolling. Right. Yeah,
cool. Well, I do know that even during COVID you have been pretty active. You obviously released Drain the Bloodbath, which I want to touch on in a little bit, but you also put out the Heaven Zine.
Yeah.
Can you tell me what the idea behind that is and what fans can expect to find in it?
For sure, yeah. I mean, Julia just has brought a camera on tour, and been actively taking photos for a few years now. Julia has played bass in Chastity on a bunch of tours, and I think started in 2018, started to take photos for this zine, and we just kind of had photos stockpiled, and Julia went to school for graphic design stuff and just had this layout, and it just turned out crazy. I think it looked really good, and we were like, okay, and included photos from other friends along the way, and again, it just turned out kind of ultimate, and Stefan Babcock and Amanda Fotes have a label called Little Dipper, and we're friends with them, and they were like, do you want to work on something together? And we were like, yes. And so we got together on this, and we released it with a flexi. I truthfully didn't really know what a flexi was before it was explained, but I think it's cool. It's like, yeah, like I don't even know how to explain it well.
Yeah, it's like a super soft vinyl, right?
Yeah. So it turned out sick. And so, yeah, we just, kind of decided to put her out and put her online and get her going. So kind of tried to time it up a little bit with Halloween, I think. So, yeah. So, but I'm proud of how it came out, and proud to have worked with Julia and Stefan and Amanda on it. And it's sick.
Yeah. Just from like the pictures I've seen, I haven't received mine yet. I ordered it, but it's just from the pictures I've seen on it, man. It looks very cool. I love shit like that. So that's sweet. And then I know it's also like a very limited supply, right? There's only 250 available.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So if anyone wants to get it, I'm looking at some right now. So there's still some left. I'm not going to front, but yeah.
Right on, man. And then, I'd love to talk about the new single. It's such an awesome song. Can you tell the story behind the song? And I'd love to know how Makeda got involved.
For sure, yeah. The term "drain the bloodbath," I saw my friend Sam tweeted it, to be completely honest,
okay.
In a reply to something having to do with American politics. And I was like, ooh, mine now. Like, I asked Sam, but I was like, wow, that is good and just cheeky enough, but ambiguous enough that it just sounds like a theme I could attach to a song. So, honestly, it started there in the spring, I think, and just sort of in a songwriting spree. And then my friend Keegan and I worked on writing it, and it just kind of turned out exciting, even just on acoustic guitar. So built it up when we recorded in August, and the bridge just sort of called for a more powerful vocal than I'm able to deliver, honestly. And I've been a fan of Makeda for a while. I first saw her in on this video online singing with the band Girls. And I went searching the internet like for her contact, and I found it on a Wednesday, and the song was due on the Friday.
Oh my God.
And just sort of made it happen. And she's in Los Angeles area, and just sort of, it was just this like blinders out, like tunnel vision, like I gotta get this done. I'm so happy I've gotten a hold of her. I'm so happy she likes the song. And then she just did it, and it turned out like so beyond expectation. I was like, I want to put this out, and I'd love to put it out sort of a week before the election. Just sort of it's not directly about drain the swamp. It's just a song about coping ahead and about sort of clearing out your past for hopefully a clearer future. And but I think it was sort of thematic, like those themes also match with what's going on in American politics. So it just sort of felt a bit right to drop a single as well, and just to keep her going. And I think I've got some anxiety, to be completely honest, that people are just gonna forget about certain artists if they don't keep active, and I'm afraid of being one of those artists. So I want to just stay visible. And I think it's sort of like it's a bit motivated by anxiety to keep releasing and keep her going. But anyway, I was proud of the song and wanted to drop it.
Yeah,
so.
For sure. I think definitely you should be, man. It sounds so awesome. And I remember listening to it the first time, and just hearing those backing vocals from her, and I was just like, such an interesting approach to a Chastity song, but it just works so well.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Makeda killed it. So, and I was taken aback too the first time I heard it. I was like, oh wow, like this. I think the outro gets me and just sort of solidifies how proud I am of the song or whatever. And it's with credit to Makeda and credit to Keegan who wrote it with me and credit to everyone that worked on it. So it's I was pumped. I was like, oh man, when she sent those vocals, I was like, ooh, nice.
Yeah, for sure. So is this just a standalone single, or will this appear on the next Chastity album?
It's a good question. I'm kind of wrestling myself with sort of track listing and some last vision parts of the next Chastity album. I think I'd love for it to be on the next Chastity album, but I think we'll just see what happens. And I kind of want to compete with the songs that I've got, like not publicly or out or whatever, like the unreleased songs. And I want to compete songwriting wise, and continue to push myself. I just kind of hear these stories about, like, you know, Bruce Springsteen wrote Born in the USA like last minute as a last minute sort of addition. There's like these types of things that get brought up that I'm like, oh, okay, like I need to just drive myself a bit crazy while I've got the time to make this as strong as possible, I think, and the proudest I can be. But so I now that Bloodbath is out, I think I'm like pumped it's out, but I'm also like, let's try to keep going. And you know what I mean? Like, and if there's a stronger one or whatever, I want to just like set the bar and try to, but well, I mean, we'll see what happens. I also want to put strings on Bloodbath. I'm going to record strings in the new year on a bunch of tracks, and I think Bloodbath could use some. So I'm also like, maybe it should have a second life with strings, and so we'll see what happens. But
cool.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm sure it's like probably way too early to be asking something like this, but like, when do you think the third album might be coming out? That's definitely like a late next year kind of thing, or?
I think so. We'll see. I mean, no pun intended. We'll see like what kind of Bloodbath of releases is going to happen in the summer. I think people are working on projects now, and people are recording right now, and I think there's going to be kind of a pile on of, you know, music piling up on each other in the next summer. But I think I'm hoping, honestly, who knows? I got to figure it out, and this isn't anything official, but I'm hoping at some point mid next year. But got to figure it out. And honestly, I got to finish this, recording it and everything. I got to finish the work on it, and then that type of stuff. I think it's just like, to be completely honest, it's like industry hurdles I gotta jump after I finish it. So I'm trying to finish it so that I can get, you know, doing the Queen's Gambit with the industry.
Right.
Know?
Yeah.
Like, so.
Yeah, totally get that. So I wanted to get to know you and maybe a little bit of the history of Chastity a bit. I do want to know what you were growing up listening to. You mentioned that like you were happy to hear that children kind of sounded Smashing Pumpkins. That's what you were going for. What kind of stuff were you listening to growing up?
Well, I was raised in the church, and I sort of was, I think, first listening to like brass music and sort of like old shit, you know, like, and I think that was my sort of first exposure to music, was like a big brass band playing stuff and sort of these like choral hymns and everything. So, and then, I mean, I found skateboarding, and I found The Used, I found My Chemical Romance, I found like sort of this like I think then after that I found like MySpace emo, and I found just like MySpace type music that I was drawn toward, and then after that I think I found Nirvana and the Smashing Pumpkins and Mudhoney, and funny enough, I found The Used, I think, before I found Nirvana or whatever. Huh. And then I sort of had a retrospect, and gained a retrospect on music. Which I'm still, I want to learn, and I want to like discover new old stuff, you know what I mean? Like new to me, but it came out whenever. So, mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I grew up listening to. Like, I think, first big impact, I think, were bands like The Used and bands like Alexis on Fire. I think especially seeing a band like that from Southern Ontario had a huge positive impact on me and sort of my path. So that was massive to me. And there are always murmurs too in my high school. Like Chaos went to my high school, and we had the same drama teacher, Mrs. Rogers, and she praised Chaos and his ability and sort of used it as a tool to motivate, I think, the kids she was teaching, and to push us, and to sort of let us know that like having a discipline in performance is possible, to live a life and support yourself and perform. So I think I was motivated as well by Chaos and by his music, and just knowing that like these halls were shared, by a legend, like by a Canadian legend. I think that's
wicked. Yeah.
So that was pretty cool for me too. And I think that influenced me, and just sort of like, it's a weird and it's like a likely risky path or whatever, to be like, I'm going to tour, like I'm going to like record music and spend a bunch of money, and you know what I mean? Like, mm-hmm. And it might not work or whatever, but I think
you got to take that chance.
Yeah. And I think seeing that someone had taken that chance from Anderson Collegiate, from Whitby, from, you know what I mean? Just like that, background and other obstacles, that I potentially didn't have, that Chaos did, like in overcoming those, it was just motivating for me to know that. So,
yeah. That's really cool. That's a very, very fun, like little tidbit, Chaos going to your school. So you start with brass, you start getting into punk rock. I can relate to that because I found a lot of great bands, firstly just from playing Tony Hawk, but then also just like getting into skating, watching skate videos. I found that skate videos just had such a variety of stuff, because every skater would be like, oh, I'm going to get this track under my video or whatever. I'm trying to think, like, I think like Placebo for me was a band that I like really connected with back then, I think that was from the Flip Sorry video. And
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like so that's very cool, and I think that's maybe something that people in our generation, because skateboarding was so huge. I don't know if it's like still a big thing. I don't think it's as big as it was when we, like, it sounds like we're roughly the same age. So when we were in our like early to mid teens, and so I think that's something like a lot of people can connect with for sure.
Oh yeah. Like I'm thinking of like the Zero Dying to Live soundtrack, and like I think it's like this one thing if your parents are playing The Who or Neil Young, mm-hmm. but if you hear Rockin' in the Free World and Jamie Thomas is skateboarding to it, I think it's another context. It contextualizes it in a way, different way than your dad asserting. Yeah, like your dad asserting, like, listen to this.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, no disrespect to my dad or whatever, but it's just hard to compete with Jamie Thomas.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so then you're getting into punk rock music, and I can also totally connect on the whole MySpace era. Like, it was a very interesting time, MySpace, to find like all the up and coming bands, and then actually seeing a lot of these bands kind of like make it into the the real world, out of the MySpace realm, and like make it into like, you know, hitting the radio and MTV and all of that. How long was it until you started like writing your own music? And I'm assuming, were you in bands before Chastity?
Yeah. I mean, I was like in a MySpace project, but before that, I think I just started writing lyrics, and I started writing poems or whatever, like in elementary school. I'd say like grade 5 or 6, or something. Just started scribbling down ideas and rhyming things and whatever, and just felt motivated, I think, to write music, just to have a cooler home for these poems or whatever than just my notebook. So I started probably in grade 8 or something with like just an acoustic project that I'd throw on MySpace or whatever it is, and then I just kept going from there, and just kept trying to challenge myself, I think, in music, and get to it's just like, for me, just trying to get to like record the song that I have in my head, you know, and for it to sound similar to how it sounds in my head. And I think Chastity has been the closest to that that I've ever been able to accomplish. But I'm still working on it, but I hear it in my head, and I want to get it down as close as possible.
Okay. And do you play any instruments yourself?
Yeah, pretty poorly. I grew up playing piano. I was in piano lessons, and I grew up playing the euphonium and the cornet and the trumpet in church. But I mean, I know a bit of theory, and so I went to music camp, and but it's not my strong suit. I like melody and lyrics and writing those, and just I'm not. Yeah.
So when you're going in, I'm just trying to get an idea of what the process is like. So you have your lyrics and a melody in your head. Are you just like kind of going up to the guys in the band and being like, I want it to sound like this, and kind of like humming or whistling or something like that?
Yeah, essentially. I mean, I've got different ways or whatever. I've got voice memos right now. I've got like 4,000 or 5,000 notes in my phone of little things, you know, that just even one liner things or 2 sentences on top of each other that rhyme, or just like full things that I'm in the shower or whatever, and I'm like, oh, I gotta dry my hands and wash and write this down or whatever. So, I mean, I kind of come in with some homework done, and then, I've done it in a bunch of different ways, but I think then I try to reference something that I hope to rip off sometimes, and and show whoever I'm writing with, or who I'm writing with sometimes comes with an idea established already, and we give her from there. And so it just depends. There's been a few situations, but I mean, I'm trying to think, like children. You talked about children. That idea Keegan, I think, had thought of and imagined prior to it, but him and I both have a love and respect for the Smashing Pumpkins, and I think Smashing Pumpkins had been in our conversations and on our mind, and I think we just sort of approached that song, and it just sort of happened, and there's some like arrangement stuff that ended up being trimmed and whatever on that song, but it happens in a bunch of different ways. And then Chains, for example, is another. It was a demo, and it was a bit all over the place, and my friend Nolan had written that, and we were like, what if we put that at the beginning, and then and then I tried a million different lyrics over those verses. It just happens, honestly, 100 different ways, but it's always lyrics first for me, and then trying to find a home for the lyrics.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And then I think I read somewhere that you kind of approach an album with an overarching theme, right? Like you know what the entire album's message is going to be when you're doing it. So I know Death Lust was about like police brutality, institutional racism, white privilege, and mental health. Do you have an idea of what the third album, what the messaging will be in that?
Yeah, I think it's just going to be about happiness, I think. It's sort of and just sort of the like long and windy road of like attempting happiness, and kind of wanting it for family and friends and community and everybody,
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's that's the theme that I've been sort of riffing on and writing toward. So
cool. And then, I think I also read that probably back in 2018, so it would have been right around when Death Last came out. Maybe it was when Homemade Satan was kind of in the works, but you had mentioned that you'd always had this idea for a trilogy of albums.
Yeah.
So what happens once the third album's out? Is there going to be no more Chastity, or?
Oh, I don't I hope Chastity will keep on. But we'll see. I don't know. I think the trilogy will be finalized in my mind. But then, I don't know where I'll challenge myself next or whatever. Just kind of got to see what happens. But I think I've got something in mind for LP4, but I got to finish LP3 first and just do this trilogy justice. And then from there, I think by hopefully February or March of this coming year, I'll feel like the trilogy is closed and LP3 has done it justice, and then I'll probably the very next day I'll probably start worrying about LP4 and start thinking about it, and who knows where the world will be at, but I might have some time, to start on stuff, I hope. If the world is still frozen.
Right, yeah. Have you thought about that at all? Like what that's going to be like, having to potentially put an album out. The rules are still the same as now, and there's no touring allowed. Have you thought about that?
Yeah. Honestly, I obsess and worry and try to think of my next move in this chess game too much, I think. But I think, say a record came out mid 2021, I think that it would be cool to announce tickets for 2022,
right.
With the record, and then plan for then. But it's still so early. I don't know when this podcast will be released, but it was a week or so ago that the first vaccine was announced as somewhat successful in their own clinical trials. So it's who knows what'll happen in the next bit, but I'll just have to adapt and drop it. It does make me nervous or whatever, but I think with given enough time, it sounds like this vaccine warrants some optimism and some planning ahead for shows for 2022, I think. But again, I don't want to get ahead of myself.
For sure. But, it's such uncertain times. It's really hard to plan anything ahead of time.
Totally.
Cool. All right, man. We're coming to the my final 3 questions, and I ask everyone this. What have you been listening to the most during COVID?
The thing that comes top of mind is Future and Lil Uzi Vert tapes that just dropped, but that's not during COVID. I love the band Copeland. It's been a constant for me in my music listening. I'd have to look at my Apple Music or whatever and see what I've been listening to, but maybe Future or Copeland.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's totally fine. It doesn't have to be stuff that necessarily came out. I'm just trying to get a sense of what makes everyone at least feel comfortable with something. Sometimes people say they're listening to classic rock because it just reminds them of better times. Okay, and then how do you go about finding new music these days?
I'm admittedly still like a Pitchfork head, and I go on Pitchfork and stuff, and but I think it's 2020 or whatever, we get 10,000 messages a day trying to get us like to buy a product or check something out or whatever. So I think it does take me 6 or 7 recommendations or hearing of a name, to actually check something out, like
right.
Mitski or whatever. I kind of just had to hear the name Mitski a few times to then be like, okay, what is this project, and finally check it out and be like, wow, like people were right. I should have checked this out sooner. So, but it kind of takes that for me, I think, too, to hear it from 100 different places and then see it on somewhere I trust or whatever. I mean, I trust Pitchfork somewhat. But, and then I'll check it out. So it takes some work or whatever. I'm also like, my music listening is, I think I unfortunately probably only check a dozen artists out a year or whatever, new artists potentially. I need to do it more, but I'm kind of sort of stuck with what and I return to stuff I love, I think, for that reliable dopamine that I already know often. I'll go searching a little bit when I'm like, when I'm tired of what I've got or whatever,
Yeah, I totally get that. I found it pretty interesting that you mentioned like Future and Lil Uzi Vert, because that's not what I would have expected you to listen to. So are you pretty big into hip hop then?
I think I'm pretty big into melody and into like cadence and flow, and I think guys like Future and Young Thug and whatever that can switch their flow and their melody up 10 times on one song or whatever, I think is just like peak excellence in melody and in flow and whatever, and song structure, like I try to write verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, outro or whatever. And that I find challenging sometimes, but Future and Young Thug and these different artists are just able to push themselves like crazy, I think. And I think I'm just like extremely interested in that. And it makes me want to challenge myself more and explore, how many times can I switch it up if the song calls for it or whatever, on one song. But it's a different discipline in ways, but it's like very similar in a lot of ways. And they are just like masters, I think, historically in melody.
Cool. Okay. That's a great answer. All right. And then last question for you. What is the latest and greatest find that's new to you that you just came across and you're like really into?
Let me think. Like during COVID or during...
Let's say 2020. Oh, I guess 2020 was COVID, but let's say in the last, like even pre-COVID, if there was something that that was like new to you that you're like, holy shit, these guys are great.
Yeah. I think I'd say Ethel Cain. This just like amazing ethereal artist from Florida.
Okay.
She's got an EP out. That's amazing. I think it sounds like she's working on a full length and just kind of drops like SoundCloud, like amazing songs every once in a while. Just one-offs, but I think that's sort of an extremely anticipated record.
Cool.
For me is Ethel Cain's
sweet
record whenever that comes. Yeah.
Okay, wicked, man. Awesome, Brandon, man. Thank you so much for the chat. This was really easy and good.
Thank you. Yeah, for me too. Thank you so much for coming with research and seeing the band. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man. I am very excited to be able to see you guys again, whenever that may be. But I look forward to it.
I appreciate it. Thanks again.
Cool, man. Cheers. Have a good one.
Take care.